type. Okay, good afternoon everyone. So let me begin with my introduction. I hope most of you must be knowing me, but anyways, I need to begin now with my introduction. So my name is Piyush Kumar, and as you do know that this is the orientation lecture for history optional, right? So history optional, right? So there are two terms, history and the optional, right? Anyways, so like what I'll say in the beginning, that we have to start gradually, and for the first week you don't need to sort of note down multiple things, right? In the first week you are supposed to somehow develop the sense of history. That is the basic idea or the agenda that we do have, right? So somehow we'll be completely guided in the first coming week, right? That how to develop the sense of history, right? And many other things like that I'll keep on discussing. And I won't say that these are not having implications, right, or application when it comes to history optional. Definitely these are having multiple implications, and just because of that reason we had been doing it. And but what is very important for you, that sometimes you may feel that this is not very useful, but it is not true, right? Whatever we have been discussing or we're going to discuss in the coming week, that's very, very important. That's very important in terms of developing that kind of holistic understanding of history as a subject, right? And then only somehow we'll be able to understand the requirement of UPSC. That's the most important thing, right? So this is what I'll say for the first thing, as the first thing. And now we have to begin with this session, right? So when it comes to this session, right, so let me tell you first thing, that every activity that we people have been doing, like there is a purpose behind that, right? Every activity that we have been doing in a life, there is a purpose behind that. Normally it is belief that the purpose of life is nothing but salvation. This is how it has been said. But unfortunately we people are somehow guided totally by materialism, and that's the reason because of what we are also supposed to deal with kind of materialistic things, right? So we are not going to deal with the concepts of salvation and all. Definitely we'll discuss about salvation while doing Buddhism, Jainism or Brahmanism, let us say Hinduism. ठीक है, तो जब हम उसकी बात करेंगे तब हम करेंगे, ठीक है? So this activity is also having one purpose, one agenda, one goal, right? And what goal we people are having, that's very important to understand. Here we are having the goal, right, to score somewhere around this, right? So this is the goal that we people are having, that we have to score, right, this much, at least this much, right, in UPSC examination, Civil Services Examination, right? So we people are having this goal, and somehow we'll be completely guided by this idea only. Okay? This is how we are going to proceed, that at least we are able to score this much, right? Or somehow we are coming, or we are coming near to this score. That is what our target is there, right? So anyways, let me tell you one thing, like this is, these are we, right? And this is our goal, right? That we have to score 300. As if you are able to score 300, so I think this much score not only help you to cross this examination, to go through, to pass this examination. At the same time, if you are scoring this much, in that case, definitely you are going to, secure very good rank in UPSC. And that's the reason because of what I have been saying 300. Of course, we cannot be so much, objective. That's a very subjective issue. But roughly, as I told you, that, this is what we have been targeting for. So now, as I told you, that individual, this is the target or the agenda and goal, right? And now the thing is that everyone has to reach from here to here, right? So this is a kind of journey. And once you have been talking about this journey, there might be multiple paths to this journey. So there is no one channel of success. Okay? There may be, there's no one path of success. There might be multiple paths for success. Okay? But the point is that, as you people are here, and that is why there are certain responsibilities with me also. And what is our challenge? We have to somehow find the shortest, right? We have to find the shortest and the path which is consuming less of our energy, and we have to reach to the same goal, right? So I think, this is how the mentors are helping you, that how to reach, to a goal, to our goal, to our goal in a, just by covering the shortest distance, putting, lesser efforts, okay? And somehow, like this is the path through which you can secure this much mark. So basically, what is the agenda that we do have? Like, this is the agenda. And in fact, like this is the reason, because, and there are several reasons because of what I have been discussing. So, like there might be, as I told you, that many paths, like there might be many paths through which you can, come to the same path, same goal, or you can attain the same goal. But the point is that, like, how to minimize our efforts, because it is not the optional which is which is playing very important role. There are several other papers as well, but what one thing that you must be pretty sure of, that when it comes to optional, this is one area of your UPSC examination, one section of your UPSC examination which plays major role. Why am I saying so? Because you must have noticed one thing, that when it comes to UPSC examination, and if you're comparing the marks of comparing the marks of different areas in different areas, in that case you'll find that out of 1000, if you're scoring around 400 in general studies, and then you are scoring around 125 130 in essay paper, and then if you're scoring around 300, so this is how you're going to clear it. But the point is that when it comes to that 400 marks in general studies, so I think that is quite generalistic. Like most of the people, those who had been preparing UPSC very seriously or dedicatedly, they're able to score this much, right? But when it comes to optional, I think it is not very easy to score this much in optional. As to reaching to reach to that score of 300 or plus minus 10 or whatever you say, right? That's a kind of tough journey. But I think if you are properly planned, right? If you have proper understanding of the nature of the subject, in that case we'll be able to somehow reach to that score. And as I told you that somehow that marks play that optional marks play very important role, and that's the reason because of what, right? That's the reason because of what we have been discussing about all these things, right? Anyways, right, just now, as I was just telling you, that there are multiple paths, and that's the reason because of what I was discussing about this shortest path. Now, what is this multiple path? There is a very common perception whenever you have been choosing, right, any optional paper, and it's in fact it is not true only for the optional paper, it is very much true for all the other papers that you have been preparing in general studies, that that's a common perception also. And sometimes it is like you are conveyed by many people also, that it all depends on content, right? If you have that much content, you'll be able to score good, right? And in fact, like when it comes to content, you have to be very selective here, right? So if you think that only the content can get you this much marks, I think this is a kind of this is a kind of misconception, and this is a kind of false consciousness that if you have been thinking, right? Only the content cannot get you a score. So if like many people are saying, okay, I'm just going to cover this much, right? So ancient covers 10 books, medieval cover 10 books, right? Modern covers 10 books, world also cover 10 books, right? So this is how many people are telling you, or sometimes you are also thinking in the same direction, that if I'm covering this much, so what is the problem? Like, of course I'll be able to score this much. But mind you, content is not the only criteria. And in fact, if the bulkiness of the content should be the only criteria for clearing or for scoring this much in optional paper, in that case you must remember one thing, that definitely the people those who have been coming from academics, right, they would be able to score all the time, they would be able to score more, right? But one pattern that you must have noticed, it is not necessary that the people, those who had been coming from academics, right, they are only able to score very good. That pattern you must not have seen. Yes, the people, those who are coming from academics, and they somehow developed, or they somehow, were able to adjust with this UPSC demand, in that case they are also able to score good. But in most of the cases you'll find people or the aspirants, those who have been coming from technical backgrounds, they are also able to score very good. They are reaching around 300, sometimes they are crossing 300. I remember one of my students, Iswar Kandu, he scored 316, and in fact he was an engineer, and that too in working, like he was working that time, even though he managed to score 316 in history optional, right? So what I'm trying to tell you, that content is not the only criteria, and sometimes if you're trying to collect the content from different sources, in that case that might be also problematic, right? And that is why never ever bother for the content, right? So content, like a minimal content is definitely required, but for that content you don't need to hunt different kind of sources, right? And if you are doing so, in that case you must know that from which book what content should be picked up. That's very important, and that is why if you have this false consciousness that I'll study that much, I'll collect the content from so many sources or various kind of sources that I'll be able to score very good, I must tell you in the beginning that it is not true. The content is not the only criteria, and that is why don't ever go for the exhaustive notes as such. ठीक है, आप इतना बड़ा बल्कि notes बना लेते हैं, this is very exhaustive, and if you are not able to somehow comprehend that exhaustive notes, or if you are getting somehow struck while presenting all those content in your answer, and in fact like you are not able to somehow conceptualize the main demand of the questions being asked in the examination, in that case definitely you are not going to you won't be able to score very good. So you always you are supposed to keep all such kind of things in your mind, that you should not bother much for the content. And in fact I must tell you that there are 4 booklets that will be developing, right, that will be developing through the classes only, and mind you, those 4 booklets should be more than sufficient at least to reach to this target. If you want to score 350, that I don't know, right? Because I never claim, though people are scoring more than this, like I have seen people scoring 325, 326, and they have reached to 330 also, right? So every year someone is scoring this much, right? But I won't say ki you are also going to score this much, right? So what is our target? I have very categorically I have said you ki this is what we have been targeting for, and mind you, rest depends on your understanding, your presentation, because this is not the only part. Because of what you have been awarded, the way you have been expressing your answers, or the way you have been writing your answers, that also matters a lot. And that is why these days you must have noticed one thing, that writing has become one key for the success. And that's the reason, because of what don't ever try to focus much on content. And as I'm promising you that with limited content also you'll be able to score this much, this is what you should keep in mind. So never ever try to hunt different content, because that is not required, right? So if the content part is not very important, then what is the next part which is very important? Of course, if the content is not the sole criteria of clearing this examination, then the next thing I'll say that's very, very important, that is about that is about understanding, right? So understanding is very, very important here. And in fact, like I just told you, just now I told you that in coming few classes what we are going to do, somehow we have to develop that sense. Now I'll come to that point also, that what is this sense of history, like because without developing that sense of history, it is, I must tell you that it is highly unfortunate, but it is true that you won't be able to score very good. And in fact, like I'll be coming to that direction also, right? But before I start, let me tell you a few more things which are very important. Like this problem is not there, you guys have selected history as an optional paper, but at the same time I must tell you there are few confusions, right? Or there are few misconceptions, and these conceptions, these misconceptions, I'll say this, these misconceptions are very, very important. And in fact, if you are having such kind of pre-assumptions, in that case we need to come out from these pre-assumptions, because then only you'll be able to do justice with this paper. Otherwise, if you are completely suppressed, right, or you are under the pressure of these kind of assumptions, in that case definitely your mind would be completely diverted and you won't be able to somehow fulfill your idea or your agenda, right? Now, what misconceptions I have been talking about? Like the first misconception that you do find, that the syllabus is very huge, right? That misconception is very, very popular. And in fact, whenever it comes to syllabus wala part, right, that's most of the people are saying ki yes, the syllabus is vast. And in fact, people are also saying that if you're covering syllabus, or if you have picked up history as an optional paper, in that case at least it is going to take 6 to 7 months to complete the syllabus. But I think this is a misconception. Why this is a misconception? There are two things I'll say here. What are these two misconceptions, right? First I'll say that if we'll compare the history optional syllabus with the other optional papers, right? History optional syllabus with the other optional papers, in that case you'll find that the other optional paper, like the syllabus that have been given in other optional papers, these are not decoded properly, right? These are not decoded properly. Whether if you'll see the history optional paper, in that case you'll find it is completely decoded. Suppose you have been seeing the ancient, right? The syllabus of ancient, each and every minute terms have been has been given. And in fact, that's the reason because of what it seems like, it sounds that it is very lengthy, right? It is very huge, but actually this is not this is not reality. So what is reality? That as they have already given this decoded syllabus, and this is the reason because of what it seems very bulky, it seems very heavy, it seems huge, but this is not the reality. So never ever think in this direction that it is kind of like we are going to cover a huge syllabus. No, like every minor aspect, like suppose Arthashastra, like this is one aspect that is important. Now in fact, like I am just giving one topic, that this is Mauryan Empire. So when it comes to Mauryan Empire, so within this Mauryan Empire, Arthashastra is naturally becoming part of Mauryan Empire, because wherever it comes to Mauryan Empire, of course we need to understand Mauryan Empire with the help of Arthashastra. So it's quite natural that Arthashastra, or let us say Indica, Megasthenes Indica, or Ashokan inscriptions, they are naturally becoming part of this part of syllabus, but they have written each and everything. So once we'll try to understand the syllabus with that perspective, in that case definitely you won't find that the syllabus is a kind of is very bulky as such. Rather what I can say, as it is already given in the decoded form, and that's the reason because of what it seems it seems bulky. And in fact, I must say you one more thing, that if it comes to only understanding the syllabus, the whole syllabus of UPSC, I must tell you it is not going to consume more than 2 months only, right? Within 2 months at least I can finish the syllabus. If it is only about passing you that understanding about history optional, like for every content, for every topic that has been given in the syllabus, it is not going to consume more than 2.5 months. Like within those period only, like it is quite possible for us to finish the syllabus. But of course we have been doing some other processes simultaneously, like sometimes of course certain processes of dictation and all. So if as we guys are somehow getting involved into that that process also, and that's the reason because of what it is consuming some more time. But I think any optional that you have been doing, at least it consumes 4 to 5 months. And in fact history also requires, with every other processes which are required for covering any syllabus of any optional paper, I think we are able to do all such kind of things within 4.5 months, okay? Or let us say 5 months. So we are not, we don't require that much time as it is normally believed. And in fact, there's another, another agenda. Like of course I was just going into that direction. The another agenda or another misconception that is very popular, that it is hardcore factual, right, or fact-based. Hardcore factual or fact based, right? This is what supposed to be the another misconception और ये काफी popular भी है. That's very popular, that yes, this is very highly factual subject, ठीक है? And in fact, I'm not able to understand why the people are calling it very factual, ठीक है? And in fact, I must tell you that all those people who do not understand the real nature of this optional paper, they mostly think that this particular optional paper is highly factual, right? Or it is fact based. Because whenever we have been saying history, like जब भी आप किसी को बताते हैं कि history is my optional paper, right? So they'll be asking certain questions. Those who are not coming from UPSC background as such, they'll ask a question like, what is the period for the third battle of Panipat? When did Aurangzeb die? ठीक है, ऐसे ही 2-4 questions होते हैं जो आपसे पूछते हैं. But आपको वाकई लगता है कि these facts somehow decide the nature of history? Like definitely not, right? The facts are not important at all. There are certain facts definitely required, and in fact, if you think the facts are somehow in terms of dates and names and other things, let me make you clear one thing very in very early stage only, that you don't even or you don't ever require to mug up all such kind of facts. And in fact, in most of the cases, what I do, I ask or I suggest students to avoid writing such kind of dates, names and other things, right? You are not getting rewarded for writing all those facts. To certain extent, the facts are definitely required. I'm not denying this fact, but the facts are basically, used in form of examples, right? So when facts are used in form of examples to somehow substantiate your answer or the argument that you have been writing, and that's the only, the only utility of the facts and the figures that you have been writing, and that too never comes in form of dates and names, right? Like there are certain books that you require, that you remember. I think that's the more than sufficient. Some names and that can somehow fulfill your agenda. So if you think in this way, the facts and figures are very important in history, so always avoid that misconceptions that facts and figures are playing very important role. To certain extent, it is definitely required, and to some extent, we have to cover it. But all those names of people and the years for important events, like these are not having any as such significance. Like history is more important, like more interested knowing about the centuries, right? Or let us say decades. So these are the time units that we are supposed to use. Of course, we are reaching in modern India that sometimes the time is also becoming important. But I think if you are not writing all those dates, right? When did Palasi happen? That hardly matters to us, because when did it happen? I think just by knowing that, it is not going to make kind of multiple changes as such. What is important, that what is roughly the period in which the Battle of Palasi was taking place, that is important, because if it was taking place on 1757, so there must be some other factors or other events happening around India, or let us say in India, and in fact these events are also having some impact. So with that respect, we need to know about the exact the rough time frame of any event. So we don't need to know the exact time frame it is happening on 23rd June, right, 1757. I think this is not how we are supposed to remember the facts and the figures. So that is the reason because of what never ever try to understand the point, understand this in this way. So you don't need to mug up the facts and figures. And in fact, like there are certain facts definitely not in form of not in form of names, not in form of years that you need to remember. Some facts are there, and in fact over the period you'll be able to understand that what kind of facts we are supposed to remember for writing the examination, right? Okay, the next important confusion or the misconception that we people are having, that is about basically being it very static paper. Okay? So it is believed that UPSC or history optional in UPSC is highly static. Okay? And sometimes it is considered to be a kind of positive aspect of history optional, I must say, that it is static, and that is why if you are writing UPSC in this attempt and somehow if you fail in clearing this examination, and in that case in the next attempt you don't need to do value addition, right? That is true to certain extent. Yes, history is not changing in a very faster manner. History is not static, that you must know. History is also changing, but that pace of change is bit slow, and that is why if you are writing 2 or 3 attempts in UPSC, so in terms of content you don't need to change a lot. आपको थोड़ा बहुत चेंज करना पड़ सकता है, बट बहुत ज़्यादा चेंज नहीं करना पड़ सकता. That's true, but it does not mean कि the paper is very static or this nature of the history optional is very static. Rather, if it used to be it would be very static, in that case definitely there won't be any utility of this particular paper. But actually you need to connect history with multiple other events, I must say, or we can say multiple other events happening around us, or multiple other things, like it is very much likely, it is very much possible for us to connect the that optional paper, this history optional paper, with multiple other things. And that's the reason because of what, if you are having that perception that history is a very static paper, that's completely correct. Because if we have been reading history, like there is a agenda, there is a meaning for this. And what is that meaning, which is very important? Like somehow we are reading history. The only objective for reading history is that we are reading history to understand our present in a better way, the first thing. And we have been studying history to make or to shape our future better. That's the another thing, right? So somehow there are certain application of history even in the present or in future, and sometimes it is also helping us to understand the things happening around us. Like if we are referring the events happen in past, like that helps us to understand the events which are happening in present. And that's the reason because of what I won't say that this is a very static paper, rather it's interdisciplinary, right? You need to connect it with several other areas, and that is how you'll be able to do justice with this paper. So never ever have this misconception that this is a highly highly static paper and nothing changes. And in fact, in terms of I told you that in terms of purely if we are dealing with purely history optional paper, in that case, or history as a discipline, in that case there are certain changes. Of course, the new researches are coming, and in fact these new researches are changing the older perceptions. And if you do not know about that, so let me give you some examples, because I have been expecting that at least you guys are here with some information, and that's the reason because of what I'll be giving you this information to you. Like you all know about Indus Valley civilization, ठीक है? Harappan civilization के बारे में हम सभी को पता है. And in fact, whenever I have been saying that, whenever I have been referring this term Indus Valley civilization, there is an image which is coming in our minds. ठीक है? क्या image आता है हमारे दिमाग में? Whenever we remember this paper, whenever we recall this paper, recall this topic, we always imagine them some cities, right? And that too with huge structures as such. ठीक है? So this is how we remember about Indus Valley civilization. And in fact, whenever I say Indus Valley civilization, there are two names necessarily comes in our mind. No, these are Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. But I hope you must be knowing, or if you do not know, I must tell you that Harappa or IVC is one culture for what excavations are very regularly going on. And in fact, like of course we guys are completely dependent on archaeological sources, and that is why mostly that's the reason because of what I talked about the excavations. Okay? And through these excavations, every year some new ideas or some new new conclusions, or let us say arguments are coming up. Initially, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were supposed to be bigger, not only in terms of settlement, also in terms of the size of the settlement, right, and many other things. But once we excavated Dhaulavira and Rakhigarhi extensively, and then it has been realized that these were much more bigger than Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. And in fact, now it has compelled the historians to think in a completely different direction, right? So this is how we can say there are several such examples that I can put forward here, I can keep here to make you understand about this. Ki history is also changing gradually. But sometimes this question also comes to me, like suppose you have gone through one article in newspaper, and that's talking about these kind of discoveries and the new sort of arguments which are coming. So there you have to learn how to make balance with the information that you already had and the new information which is coming. So now the new information which are coming to you through the newspapers, these are having a different meaning, and that can be used in our answer writing, right? But there would be a different way of incorporating all such kind of thing. So of course over the period we'll keep on learning such kind of thing. But what I'm trying to tell you that overall, right, if you'll see history, that is never static. It keeps on changing. Of course the change, right, the period in which it changes, that is somehow longer, but it doesn't mean, in fact, many questions you must have seen the recent perspective. These are based on recent perspective. So this is how we need to understand some recent perspectives as well. And without understanding that, of course, it is very tough to, like target something which is closer to 300. So that's the another thing. Well, apart from this, like, the way of history writing, that is also gradually changing. If you think that history is nothing but, the kind of the narration through which we have depicted the past, and thus we just narrated that these are the things happened in past and that is how it completed. So I think that's again a misconception. Okay, whenever or from the point of time when historians or the people, scholars have started writing the history, from there so far there were so many ups and downs, right, that could be noticed in history writing itself, right? So there are several new groups are coming. They had been interpreting the history with a completely different perspective, and that is why if you guys are thinking ki the same approach which we had like 20 years back, like 30 years back, the same approach is going to work, that is also not true. And in fact, like the most problematic thing with the preparation that you guys have been doing, that most of the books that you have been reading, these are very old, right? These are 30 years or 40 years old, I mean these are for 30 or 40 years old, and in fact we are referring very less number of books which have been designed or written down recently, because if you have been reading the books that have written down recently, in that case at least it incorporates the modern arguments or kind of new changes which have happened. And if you are reading very old books, so somehow these have these are missing all those new kind of ideas, and that's the reason because of what we have to learn. We have to see the books, okay, or the kind of theme in a very different way, that we can somehow realize this fact that this is not a static paper, rather not only in terms of understanding but also in terms of presenting the answer. You have to learn how to how to incorporate all such kind of ideas, that we are able to score very good in the optional paper, right? So I hope I'm just clear in my idea. Right, moving next, there is another important idea that is very popularly circulated in the market, that this paper is not theoretical at all, right? Normally it is believed that most of the papers are theoretical. There are certain theories which are somehow regulating the information for the subject, but I must tell you this is not true at all for history optional paper. This is how it is known or it is perceived. But do you really think that any optional or any discipline that you have been going through, okay, any discipline that you have been going through, and if you think there is no theory, and in that case I think it is impossible to design that particular knowledge or subject in form of a in a form of discipline, ठीक है? आप जब तक कुछ theories नहीं है, कुछ broader ideas और principles नहीं है, तब तक आप किसी भी सब्जेक्ट को डिसिप्लिन में कन्वर्ट नहीं कर सकते हैं. हिस्ट्री इज अ डिसिप्लिन, राइट? एंड वंस यू हैव बीन कॉलिंग इट ए डिसिप्लिन, इट मीन्स कि डेफिनेटली देयर आर सर्टेन रूल्स, रेगुलेशन, थियरीज आर देयर, एंड अंडर विच वी आर ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड हिस्ट्री. Or specifically I'll talk about history only. So that is why if you think that there are no theories at all, so that's again a misconception, right? Look, there are several things that happen in past, right? There are several things that happen in past, but do you really think that without applying certain kind of model, are we able to understand every changes that have ever happened, or every event that has happened in past? Of course not. Let me tell you what kind of theories I have been talking about, and mind you, these are the theories which could be applied to most of the part of history. And in fact, I won't say कि every time this is the repetition of same thing, but somehow it it provides us that overall understanding of that, and this is what we have been applying applying while understanding in any particular aspect. Let me give you some examples to make you understand, because that can help you to to understand this point. Such as you must have heard about let us say urbanization, right? So that's one topic which is very popular. In fact, just now I was discussing about Indus Valley civilization, and when it comes to Indus Valley civilization, so as I did tell you that Indus Valley civilization was the first urbanized civilization in India. So this is how we understand Indus Valley civilization. Got my point? So once we have been talking about urbanization, right? So now there are several stages of urbanization. There was first stage, that is known as IVC. There was second stage, that is known as Mahajanpada period. There is a third stage which comes 10th century AD onwards, right? So this is how we can discuss about several urbanizations or several stages of urbanization coming to India. Now, if we need to understand this urbanization, right, with the same perspective, like with different perspectives, in case that is that is going to be slightly tough for us, right? what we're going to do, whenever that term urbanization is coming, we have been just trying to understand that what are the key features of urbanization, what economy or what kind of settlements can be considered as urban settlement or kind of urban civilization. So we have been just figuring certain kind of key ideas, and mind you, through those key ideas we are able to understand, right, that what exactly urbanization is. So now once we have understood this, right, and definitely there are several theories, right, there are several theorists, those who have tried, theorists that they have tried to understand urbanization, right. So now when it comes to Indian urbanization, what we are going to do, we are going to simply apply this model everywhere. Is that point clear to you? Right. So this is how there are, like, there are some other examples also can be used here, such as whenever you talk about state formation, right, there are several states that got formed in India. From the beginning you can start, you can talk about Mauryan Empire, you can talk about Gupta Empire, you can talk about Kusanas, Satavahanas, you can talk about the Cholas, Cheras and Pandyas. There are several dynasties, okay? And whenever it comes to dynasties, or it comes to state formation, and that too in newer areas, in that case what is happening, that we are saying for understanding every state we cannot apply different models, right? We have a model whenever it comes to state, as I did tell you that we have a model okay, there are, whenever it comes to state formation, there are few prerequisites. So right, there are several prerequisites, such as the stratification in the society, the legitimacy angle, right, the resources or the surplus would be there in this in that quantity. So there are several prerequisites. So if all those prerequisites were present, in that case we can say yes, the ideal situation was there for the state formation. So instead of applying every time a new model, right, what we're going to do, we're going to understand the state formation irrespective of the place, irrespective of the time period, right, we're going to apply the same model everywhere, right. So this is how whatever you will see, right, in most of the places we can find that certain models are there for understanding this, and in fact these models are somehow fixing or giving those parameters on the basis of what we can conceptualize everything, and that is how it is very, very important, right. So this idea that there are no theories at all, like, that is also a kind of misconception. As for everything that we have been studying, yes, we are applying certain theories, and this is how we are going to understand the understand this optional paper, right. So I hope you got my idea. All those misconceptions that you people are having, first leave all those misconceptions, because if you are still having all those misconceptions, in that case definitely it is going to be tough for you, because these questions would keep on creating problems for you, and that is why always avoid right now only all those misconceptions, right. So neither it is very huge, nor it is very complicated, or it is very factual as such. There is nothing like as such. It is also like the other optional papers, right. And I think this is the reason because of what we'll find that at least 9 to 10% people are every year clearing UPSC examination with this history optional, and that number is almost around 100 to 120, right, out of 1,000 people, right. So if 1,000 people are getting selected with this optional paper, in UPSC Civil Services Examination, out of this 1,000 people, I must tell you at least 100 people or 100 aspirants are getting selected with this history optional. So you can understand if in any examination where there are 43, I guess optional papers, 43 or 47, I roughly remember it. So if there are so many optional paper, why is it happening that this much number of people are clearing this examination with this optional paper? And in fact, every year you'll find around 6 to 7 candidates within 100, and in fact that's a kind of good achievement. So maybe, I know you do not find the topper, but I think there is no difference between topper rank number 1 and rank number 2 in terms of, except the publicity, wala angle, okay? So if, this much people are clearing this examination with this much, in this much strength, so that clearly tells you that there is there's no requirement to fear about the performance of this paper. And what I'm saying, that is not my own data, rather you can confirm this data with the UPSC annual reports, right? So if you are seeing the annual reports of UPSC, these ideas would be very clear to you, and that is why, avoid all those misconceptions that we people are having, that very factual, very static, no theoretical perspective, right? It's huge syllabus, the selections are not happening with history. That's incorrect. ठीक है, लास्ट ईयर या लास्ट टू लास्ट ईयर का एनुअल रिपोर्ट जो है यूपीएससी के वेबसाइट में होगा, आप जाइए देखिए उसको, और आपको सारी बातें बहुत अच्छे से पता चलेंगी कि इस सब्जेक्ट का परफॉर्मेंस कैसा है. तो मेरे हिसाब से ये जो एंगल है, ठीक है, कि ये सब्जेक्ट ऐसा है, ठीक है, या वैसा है, ये हटा दीजिए. ठीक है, कोई भी एक परसेंट की भी जो है ये सेकंड थॉट मत रखेगा कि योर डिसीजन वाज राइट और रॉन्ग, राइट? योर डिसीजन वाज ऑलवेज राइट. ठीक है, एंड इन फैक्ट as I did tell you that somehow this is not what deciding your result. What is deciding your result with this history optional, that how have you perceived it? That's the most important question. Because I did tell you that there are several people who are having all those misconceptions, and they are trying to circulate such kind of misconceptions among the others as well. And that's the reason, because as I told you that some people are saying कंटेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ठीक है, जब तक आप ज्यादा इतने जगह से कंटेंट नहीं आप कलेक्ट कर लेंगे, अरे नहीं चाहिए भैया, इतना कंटेंट नहीं चाहिए हमें. ठीक है, इतना कंटेंट अगर जमा करना होता तो सम हाउ कम से कम हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल वाले को 4 से 5 साल का वक्त देना चाहिए था, और तभी वो लोग यूपीएससी कर पाते. सो आप आई होप यू गॉट माई पॉइंट कि इट इज नॉट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, राइट? सो नाउ, सो इफ when it comes to history as an optional paper, now let us move to the next direction. ठीक है, ये सारी बातें बकवास थी, ठीक है, बट ये बकवास जरूरी इसलिए थी क्योंकि आपको एक कॉन्फिडेंस देना बहुत जरूरी. इट इज हाईली रिक्वायर्ड to somehow fill this confidence in you that your decision was not wrong and your decision is right, but now you would be able to justify your decision only once you are able to somehow reach to the target that we have decided in the first class, in the first class itself. So that's the most important thing, right? So when it comes to this, right, when it comes to this question, again I must tell you one thing. Like, of course, there are good number of people, those who had been appearing in this examination with this history option, and you'll find a great range of scores. Okay? So you'll find the people somehow they are able to score only this much also, and at the same time you'll find, in fact I must say, by 200 you'll find a gap of 180. You will see the minimum one 180, and it goes up to 330 also. So this is the range of score. So as you can see, there is a difference of at least how much marks. Okay, is 150 marks. Okay, and I hope you understand. Leave this 150 marks. If there is a difference of 100 marks also, that how come it makes the change? So now the point is that, like, we are not supposed to stay here. We have to try to reach to here. And if we are here also, okay, if we are here also, so I think our job is done, right? And that is why this is a pragmatic, this is a very practical target that I have been, selecting, or I have been choosing, that somehow we have to put our efforts in such a way, right, such a way that we are able to score this much, right? So this is what we have been targeting for. Now the point is that why, this much gap can be noticed. Like, I must tell you that when it comes to content, like, there are many people, those who have been dealing, or those who have been telling you regularly, okay, for ancient these are the books, for medieval these are the books, for modern these are the books, for world these are the books, fine. So you came across the books, right? Now you started reading. The point is that, like, this information is there. This is not there is no secret as such about the content list, right? Everybody knows okay, this is the content that you are supposed to prepare. Now what is the difference between the person who is scoring around 300 or 310 320 and the person who is scoring somewhere around 180? There must be some difference between these two, and that's the reason because of what someone is not able to score that much. So we are somehow going to understand that only, that what are the reasons because of what it is happening, and of course then only we are going to the content were apart, right? So when it comes to when it comes to that reason because of what some are able to score that much higher, so I must tell you that the people, all those like people once carrying all those misconceptions, and somehow they fail in developing that understanding of the subject, right? That's very important, right? Whenever you have decided to take any optional paper, right, so it's very, very important to develop the understanding, right? Without understanding, you won't be able to somehow even imagine that score, what we have been targeting for, right? So when it comes to understanding, of course, it is a kind of, now we people are slightly moving to the technical part of the subject, ठीक है? So थोड़ा टेक्निकल पार्ट की तरफ हम बढ़ रहे हैं, बट मैं आज आपको टेक्निकल पार्ट की तरफ नहीं लेके जाना चाहता हूँ, ठीक है? आज मैं बहुत छोटी सी बात करूंगा. So when it comes to understanding, ठीक है? So through what we can decide, that understanding wala part. So there are two ways of, understanding. One that we can see, and the second that we cannot see. ठीक है? For what for what purpose you guys are here. ठीक है? So when it comes to that, so I told you that there are two different tools that can be applied by us to understand or to develop our understanding for the subject. So one thing that we do have, that is syllabus. मैंने कहा एक चीज है जो आप देख सकते हैं, ठीक है? क्या देख सकते हैं? आप सिलेबस देख सकते हैं, ठीक है? So I think that's very, very important in terms of developing that understanding. And the second thing, which is again very important, that is previous year question papers, right? Now, first, syllabus, right? So I have already discussed some of the points for the syllabus, right? There are few points I have already discussed on syllabus, that we have a very extensive syllabus, ठीक है? We do have very extensive syllabus, and everything, even the minor things are given properly in the syllabus. And that's the reason, because of what we should note down, or we should be very clear about the topics which are given in the syllabus, right? बहुत सारे topics है जो दिए हुए हैं, ठीक है? So somehow we have to understand कि okay, these are the topics that we need to cover, and in fact that to certain extent it clarifies the nature of the subject also. Why the nature? Because if you are comparing that syllabus with the academic syllabus, ठीक है, in that case you'll find definitely there are no similarities, right? There are some great differences between these two, and that's the reason, because of what here you can find certain topics are given, ठीक है? Certain topics are given, and here you'll find that things are given in a continuous manner, and that like maybe it is possible that you are not in a status right now to understand what I'm saying. Of course, over the few classes it will be very clear, right? So that is one thing. But anyways, first you develop this habit of seeing the syllabus regularly, ठीक है? So wherever you have been studying, that syllabus should be there in front of you always, because as I did tell you that the syllabus somehow giving you that insight that what are the areas that you must hunt for, ठीक है? But that should be compensated with one more thing, because if you are seeing the syllabus, if you are trying to focus on each and every aspect of syllabus, in that case I think you are somehow extending or expanding your work, and that you are not supposed to do. So what is the next thing through which we can guide ourselves? That is the previous year question papers. Very soon you'll receive a question paper. That question paper, in that question paper you'll find that the questions have been arranged on the basis of topics, ठीक है? तो हर टॉपिक के ऊपर जितने क्वेश्चंस आए हैं पिछले कुछ सालों में, वो जो है आपको मिल जाएगा, ठीक है? So once you are getting this, so what is going to happen with this? Of course you guys are now able to somehow shortlist the important areas of the syllabus. Like there are several things given in the syllabus, but all the things are not being asked in the UPSC. And in fact, over the period when you'll be able to understand the real nature of the subject, I must tell you that it will be very clear to you that what are the things which are important to you, what things can be avoided by you also. ये समझ में आएगा, ठीक है? और मैंने बार-बार कहा, what did I say you? That it is very important to reach to the target that we have fixed. And that's the reason, because of what in the initial period you are supposed to do all such kind of things, ठीक है? So what did I say you? That seeing the question paper, the first thing that we are able to understand the important topics, right? And the second thing, of course, we will be able to understand nature of the questions, ठीक है? if we'll compare the questions being asked in UPSC, right, that's totally different from the academic questions, right? And in fact, these are slightly different from the PCS questions also. So they are having a certain nature. So UPSC questions are to a certain extent, as I told you, that these are guided by certain ideas. And that's the reason because of what? You have to develop this habit, right? Now when it comes to the questions of previous year, I must tell you that instead of seeing the question, because again one more mistake that I have regularly seen with the students, okay, when it comes to the questions, so either they had been seeing it for last 20 years, okay, or last 30 years, or they had been even practicing also the questions for last 20 and 30 years. That you are not supposed to do. आप ये नहीं करेंगे बिल्कुल, ठीक है? आप एक चीज देखेंगे कि what I don't know to what extent you are able to observe this or not. 2012 is the landmark year, from where the nature of the questions, okay, the nature of the questions got completely changed. And that is why when it comes to the question, previous year questions, what you are going to do, you are simply going to consult the questions which have been asked before 2012, right? Before 2012, and that is how you'll be going to understand it, right? Okay, so these two things, is that clear to you, right? And now I'm just coming to one more, direction. That's part of syllabus only, right? मुझे पता है कि आप लोग syllabus देख के आए होंगे, ठीक है? You must have seen the syllabus, ठीक है? I think it's not very unique thing as such. It's available everywhere. I know that you guys are highly, enlightened people. You must have studied enlightenment or having some idea on enlightenment. होगा आप लोगों में? नहीं, या enlightened होंगे आप लोग? अच्छा, नहीं है तो थोड़ी enlightenment आज इधर हम लोग कर लेते हैं, ठीक है? मैं रफली बात करूंगा थोड़ा बहुत syllabus के बारे में, ठीक है? And of course, that can also help you to understand. Like this is the history optional syllabus, right? Let us say syllabus. ठीक? There are two parts in the syllabus. Paper 1, paper 2. Again, there are two portions. ठीक है? That is part A, that is roughly known as ancient India. This is part B, right? And that is known as medieval India. This is medieval India, right? Again, this is paper 2, part A, that is modern India. Modern India. And this is part B, that is modern world. ठीक है? तो ये सारे segments हैं. This is how the syllabus has been given. There are 4 parts total in the syllabus. Excuse me. Okay, this is what the syllabus is, right? Okay, fine. When it comes to syllabus, right? So of course it is given in a mixed way, ठीक है? But roughly if we'll see the syllabus of ancient India, that is from the beginning. From the beginning to, let us say, 12th century CE. That is the time period for this, ठीक है? from the beginning to 12th century C. When it comes to medieval India, so that is from 12th century to mid of 18th century, right? That is the syllabus for medieval India. ठीक है? Now modern India. So I'll say from mid of 18th century to 1950s, right? And the last, modern world. So let us say from 1700, or let us say from 17th century to, though it is said it is till date, but roughly I'll say 2001. ठीक है? That's the syllabus for modern India, modern world, right? Now, I think like you may me confuse कि जो है why am I saying so? Like of course these are the things which are given in the syllabus. But of course, what I am assuming, these are maybe some of you are not aware of this fact. But I think this is one idea, but that is not the objective of telling all this, right? There is a objective behind this, right? And that's the reason because of what I have been telling you, right? Now, what is the basic objective apart from that? What I just now said to you, that there are certain differences between paper 1 and paper 2, okay? And in fact, all those sections, not even between paper 1 and paper 2, rather I'll say there are, medieval is different from ancient, modern is different from, ancient and medieval, and to certain extent we can say this modern India is also different to certain extent from modern world, right? So when I'm, it is about understanding, and I did talk about syllabus, so I think this is the time to somehow differentiate that, to somehow, elaborate our understanding in terms of, understanding the syllabus. And this is why I have been telling you all this, right? So when it comes to this understanding, what are the things which are very important? Maybe I was just now telling you one thing, that when we'll compare the paper, history optional paper with the other optional papers, in that case you may notice one thing, that in every other optional paper, we'll find that the first paper is theoretical, right? The first paper is theoretical, and the second paper is normally application based. So this paper is mostly theoretical, and when it comes to paper 2, that will find based on applications. So we have been learning certain theories here, and then we have been applying certain, these theories here. Of course, if we'll compare, history optional with the other optional paper, maybe that you are confused that you do not find the application of this, right? But this is not true, that this is a paper which is not based on certain theoretical understanding. So of course, when it comes to paper 1, it is based on a theoretical understanding. Okay? So instead of understanding the minor things, we need to understand the bigger changes happening in the society on the basis of certain theories. Is that point clear to you? Right? So why we are doing so? One more thing, though I didn't tell you here, and in fact I don't want to break your confidence, but I must tell you that you must have noticed one pattern, that there are most of the aspirants, they're not able to score very good here, whether people are able to score very good here. The people, those who are not guided by proper mentors, those who are not prepared properly, even though they are able to score good here, they are very easily crossing 150, right? So it is always easy to score good in paper 2 just by learning few things, right? But here you are not supposed to be master, right, of the subject to score this much. But most of the people are failing to score very good in this section. Reason, because whenever they have been learning these subjects, they are not able to comprehend the theoretical part of the subject, and that is why they are never ever able to somehow adjust with the questions being asked in this section. ठीक है, तो कहीं ना कहीं ये पार्ट थियोरेटिकल है और इसके पीछे कुछ लॉजिक है. ठीक है, एंड दैट इज व्हाई व्हाट आई से कि हियर वी नीड टू गो फॉर ए वर्टिकल pattern of study. Here we need to follow a vertical pattern of study. Now what is this vertical pattern of study? Again I'll say very simple. You just see the time frame. If we'll see the ancient including early medieval, so like if I'm leaving the prehistory wala part, in that case it is for how many years? It is for at least around 4500 years. So that history is for 4500 years. ठीक है, this history is at least for 600 to 700 years, right? Just see the extended period that you do have. ठीक है, here you have been studying the history, though I have ignored the prehistory, right? I have been only talking about or I have been starting the syllabus from Indus Valley Civilization, from where our knowledge, right, is bit consolidated. So I have been only calculating that, even though it stands around 4500 years. ठीक है, the medieval from at least for 600 to 700 years. When it comes to modern India, that's only for 200 years and roughly 300 years, right? So when it comes to the syllabus, right, so of course in paper 1 we have been we have been learning the syllabus for at least 5000 years, right? So when we have been learning the syllabus or learning the history of 5000 years, so it is almost all impossible for us to go for every minor sort of thing, and that is why instead of seeing the things in a very minute way, what we have been doing, we are trying to develop a kind of overall understanding of this person, and of course this understanding is based on certain theories. आपको कुछ थ्योरेटिकल पर्सपेक्टिव है जिसके हिसाब से जो है एंशिएंट इंडिया और मिडिवल इंडिया को समझना है, और जाहिर सी बात है, लिसन इट अगेन वेरी केयरफुली, दैट थ्योरेटिकल अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हाट आई हैव बीन एम्फसाइजिंग अगेन एंड अगेन, दैट इज मोर एप्लीकेबल इन एंशिएंट, लेस एप्लीकेबल इज मिडिवल वाला पार्ट, राइट? सो एज व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू सजेस्ट यू दैट ऑफ कोर्स नॉट ओनली यू नीड टू डिफरेंशिएट बिटवीन द नेचर of paper 1 and paper 2, rather you have to differentiate between the nature of ancient and medieval as well. ठीक है, इसको भी हमें अलग पहलू से समझना पड़ेगा. And somehow if you are capable or if you are successful of developing that understanding or that theoretical understanding of paper 1, I think it's not very tough to score 160 to 170 in paper 1 also. ठीक है, but most of the people are somehow failing in developing that understanding through which they are able to score this much, right? So that's the mistake that you have people are committing, and that is why I say it's better to follow the vertical understanding or the vertical approach to understand this part. What is vertical approach? Instead of understanding the different parts, right, at the same time let us understand the history in terms of chronology. ठीक है, and let us try to understand or let us try to correlate the events which are happening in different phases. ठीक है, so we have been going vertically. ठीक है, we start from IVC and then we keep on learning about the the things which are happening next and next, right? And then we'll sometimes try to correlate them, and this is how we try to understand this paper 1. And as I told you that this idea more applicable in ancient, less applicable is in medieval India, and I think this idea can be totally ignored here. And that is the reason because of what I say कि this is more generalistic, right? As compared to theoretical, it is more generalistic, and in fact here the approach that should be followed by us is basically that horizontal approach. ठीक है, horizontal approach. Got my point, right? Now what is this horizontal approach? Here we have been learning the history of just 200 years or 250 years. यही कर रहे हैं हम. ठीक है, चलिए इसको हम बढ़ा के 250 कर देते हैं. अगर 250 तो नहीं, 260 265 is sufficient. ठीक है, तो पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस को भी हमने इंक्लूड कर लिया, राइट? So let us say it is till 1950s की बजाय let us say 1960s, right? Or 1960s, let us say 1960s, ठीक है? So okay, fine. So we have been learning the history of 250 years and 30 years. Now why did I say horizontal approach? If we'll see the topics given in paper 1, ठीक है? We'll find the themes are given, the broader themes are given, ठीक है? What themes are given? Such as like the society in any particular period, the culture in any particular period, right? The political development, right? This is how it has been given. So the events are not mentioned in the syllabus. The themes are mentioned in the syllabus. Whether if we'll come to this paper 2, here instead of giving the sort of broader things in the syllabus, they have given the minor things in the syllabus. Now what do I mean by this minor things? Very simply, I'm just telling you, like you just see the syllabus of paper 2, there you can find, okay, the coming of or European penetration, right? The British paramountcy, okay? And then it comes to the socio-economic impact of, colonial policies, right? So this is how we just need to understand the things, in bits and pieces in that part, right? But here I say horizontal approach. Why I say horizontal approach? Because here we try to learn the things from a vertical approach. So the things that happen in past, we try to apply its implication in the next event. Okay? So if we have been talking about the later Harappans, of course they had certain connection with the mature Harappans. If we have been discussing about the Vedic people, they must be having some connections with the Indus people, right? So this is how we have been trying to connect in terms of chronology. Here, instead of connecting the things in chronology, we have been trying to connect the things happening in different paths in the same time. Okay? So suppose French Revolution is taking place somewhere, or American Revolution or American Civil War was taking place somewhere, and if parallelly any event is noticed in India, so there might be some connection. This is what called as horizontal approach. ठीक है? तो हम उसको laterally जो है उसको connect करते हैं कि ठीक है यार वहाँ पे कुछ हो रहा है उसका impact होगा. First World War है उसका impact इंडिया में कुछ होगा. Second World War है उसका इंडिया में कुछ impact होगा या बाकी दुनिया के बाकी हिस्सों में भी होगा. तो ये approach develop करना है. Whenever we have been reading any event, irrespective of modern India or modern world, we need to connect like what are the things which are happening. अब अमेरिका में सिविल वॉर होता है तो उससे जो है डेकन रिबेलियन या डेकन रिवोल्ट जो हो जाता है. ठीक है, nobody knows about this connection कि how come it is connected, but yes, this is connected. So somehow we have to go for this kind of approach where you can connect the two different events happening different paths, right? But maybe in terms of their consequences they are connected. ठीक है, so this is how we can understand or we can differentiate the paper. And in fact, like when I ask you to read the syllabus today, what you are going to do, you are going to study the syllabus, and then I told you that here what is the thing, here we are having a broader perspective, let us say broader theoretical perspective that should be applied here. ठीक है, here we are not supposed to go for the broader perspective, rather we need to understand the minor events, right, with multiple perspective, right? So just write down these terms and keep in mind, fix in your mind कि here the things should be understood in a broader perspective, and there the minor events should be understood in a multiple perspective. That is how we can differentiate between these two. Now I hope you got my point कि as the way I have been trying to narrate the things, that is clear, that is a clear indication you need to understand the things in a completely different perspective. जब तक आप ये अप्रोच डेवलप नहीं करेंगे तब तक अगर आपको लगता है कि आप बेहतर जस्टिस कर पाएंगे अपने सब्जेक्ट के साथ, दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल, राइट? So this is how what I did tell you, that when it comes to syllabus, right? So I think that would be the best way of understanding the syllabus, right? So you just fix all these things in your mind, right? But I think still I haven't come to the technical part of the syllabus, ठीक है? And that's the reason, because of what? The next technical part, and in fact the biggest question that we need to settle first, and then only we'll come to the syllabus, that is, what is history? That question itself is the most important question. If you do not understand the nature of the subject, ठीक है, how come it is possible for you? How come it is possible for you to adjust with this paper? And that is why, but now when I have been coming to this question, what is history? ठीक है, what is history? So I think, now this is the technical aspect. Okay? And why am I calling it technical? Because the people, those who are coming from non-history background, specifically from technical backgrounds, okay, sometimes it is very tough for them to understand. When it comes to science, 2 and 2, if you're adding 2 in 2, it is always 4. But when it comes to history or any humanities paper, it may be 5 also. So we have to first, the next thing that we are supposed to do, that what is history, and then the another question that is important, that Indian history writing. So there are 2 more aspects that we still need to settle, and that will be done in tomorrow's class, right? So what, as I told you, that we'll start gradually, okay? First, all those people coming from different kind of background, let us adjust with all those terminologies, all those ideas and some other things, and then we'll start the syllabus. So the first week you'll be only listening, but you'll be listening the things very carefully, because here I'm going to discuss many things, and at any question you'll be able to apply these ideas, and that somehow enables you to understand the syllabus in a proper way, and that's the reason because of what it's going to happen, right? So anyways, you just come for this Google Meet. And in fact, if you have any doubts, queries, we can settle it through the Google Meet. So let us come to this Google Meet. I hope your ID has been activated now. So you just come to the Google Meet. Let us ask, let me allow you to ask the questions or the queries that you do have. And then today's class will be over after that, right? Thank you very much. रहने दीजिए लाइव, चलने दीजिए. ऑफ कर दीजिए, बंद कर दीजिए. हिस्ट्री फाउंडेशन. Am I audible? Yes, I am. Right. Yes. Yeah, Aman, just go ahead.
Yes, sir. I am. Hello.
Yeah, Aman was asking his question, so let us begin with Aman. Are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here. First of all, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Aman.
Yes, I have no doubt at present, sir.
Just tell me.
As you said, sir. Hello.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
As you said, sir, you said in paper 2, part A, that's modern India.